Welcome to Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Good morning, Houston. Good morning, Harris County. Good morning to the great state of Texas. Good morning to the United States. Good morning to every nook and cranny receiving our 100,000 watt transmission. 100,000 watt, I think I got that right. Northeast Texas, Southeast Texas, Southwest Louisiana, and Northwest Louisiana. Good morning to the world on the internet who hears us from all corners. We actually have people from all corners. Anyway, folks, we've got a great program for you today. Always, we make sure to keep you informed. Look, folks, before we get started, of course, we enter the domain of the geniuses, that studio on Caroline. Good morning, my dear.
And good morning, fan. You can hear it in the background. Good morning, Coffee Cup. Good morning, Egberto, and good morning, Jack.
Good morning, Howard. Good morning, Egberto.
And
Buenos
good morning.
dias, mi hermano.
All right.
Well, Egberto, it has happened. I need a rant.
All right. Okay, wait. Hold on.
Okay.
And now, everybody, at this point in time, first thing in the morning, a rant from the one and only Howard Reynolds.
Well, I like that intro. That's pretty nice. Where are the drums?
Ta-da-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta.
There we go. My rant today is I was looking over the arguments in front of the Supreme Court yesterday, and honest to God, those justices, either they're so stupid that they can't stand up, or they're paid off or something, because look, they're just splitting hairs. They know that this man is not above the law. They know that the prosecution should go forward, but they're just sitting up there asking stupid questions to their lawyers. And honestly, my response from the law, if I were one of the lawyers, I'd just say, look, ladies and gentlemen, with all due respect to your position, you know this man is guilty. You know this man is not above the law. This man does not have blanket immunity to do anything he wants to do. And we're just sitting up here splitting hairs and wasting time. That's it. So, come on, people. And the best way to prove this is don't vote Republican this time. Just don't do it. And my second rant is, thanks to Harry, the suggestion that he made to you some time back to watch the Great Dictator speech in Charlie Chaplin's The Great Dictator.
That was Donald, though.
I was curious about that, so I watched it yesterday. That thing was made 84 years ago in 1940.
Yes.
And those words and those sentences in that speech are just as current today as they were then. They were fighting a different type of demon back then, but it's still the same thing. It's so current. I mean, as I'm sitting here thinking, this man could be saying this on a street corner today and people would be praising, going, yes, that's true. So either things don't change or just things come back in the different forms. I'm not sure which. But that's it for me. Jack, well, you got some wisdom here?
Before we go to Jack, before we go to Jack, I want to take that up with you with the that rant from Charlie Chaplin. That was a great thing that Donald found, and I wanted to play it here, but I was looking to see what the copyright looked like, etc. And I just couldn't find that I could release it. You know, these clips that I do from MSNBC, they haven't bothered me on YouTube with copyright or anything, because I think they like the idea that you get your stuff out. But I'm going to do a reading of those words. I'm going to get the essay, because you are so right. They could have been written for today.
Yes, exactly. The current political difficulty we're having here in the United States, it's all explained right there. 1940 was when that thing was recorded.
Yes.
And it's just current today. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yes.
So, folks, go and watch this thing and see what you think. Let us know. 713-526-5738, extension 2. Let us know what you think. Of course, that's kind of what the show's all about. Now,
All right.
Is
All
it,
right.
is it Jack's turn yet? He's got a page
Yes.
full of wisdom here.
Yeah. Well, I read your post this morning, so it's not going to be too far
Okay.
off your topic. Okay. Washington GOP. We do not want to be a democracy. Can you believe they admitted it? It's a sad state of affairs when either party wants to give up on democracy. What will we do without democracy? The right, listen to this now, the right means to rule, not govern. That's the difference. Being ruled or being governed. Be clear on this choice. Look at Hitler, look at Mussolini, look at Stalin. Authoritarian rule will take away the civil rights we are all trying desperately to hold on to. Ask the women, ask the immigrant, ask the gay about their rights being eroded. We are already under attack by the fascist and they're gaining strength. Only the people can stop this with your vote and with some other things like how you spend your money, where it goes to, who it goes to. That's another way you can control this.
I agree
Yeah.
100%, my dear brother. I agree 100%. And you mentioned something that's important. And I think one of our callers alluded to it yesterday as well, Jack. And that's when you just mentioned your dollars are also a form of voting. He didn't put it quite that eloquently, but you are correct. Spending our dollar is a form of voting, and those companies that are being irresponsible, we can collectively penalize them to force them back into order. So you are so right about that. And then the other thing that you said that I like, and I want to expand on that, is the governed versus the ruled. And we are supposed to be, we have transitioned into being governed with what's the word that I with permission. In other words, consent of the many governed by the few, and that will work, has worked again, because if it comes from consent, it can be revoked. Thank you, brother, for starting off with that. And with that, I also want to welcome aboard in our chat Lizard Queen. Lizard Queen, good morning, Houston, she says. Or I assume you're a woman. And I don't know if you're from Houston or otherwise. I know Paul Fleming is in this chat as well. Paul Fleming is from Atlanta, Georgia. So we have already crossed our signal boundaries. Welcome aboard. And folks that are listening, first of all, I want you guys to know that we appreciate your ears. We appreciate, for those who are watching on the internet, whether it be Twitter, YouTube, our page at Facebook, or whatever. Thank you so kindly for being here. Jack started off with the topic that I want to start with, and that is they're not even hiding it anymore. I repeat, they are not even hiding it anymore. The idea that they do not believe in democracy. And that shouldn't scare you. Some of our callers sometimes would say, "Oh, Egberto, I'm scared about this or I'm scared about that." And I always say one specific thing: we don't need to be scared. We don't need to be worried. I will proffer that we all are on the same team. The vast majority of Americans are on the same team. What we have to do is work together and make sure that these fringe thoughts, these fringe statements don't take hold. Because if they take hold, irreversibility becomes difficult. I mean, earlier, Howard started about the Supreme Court, and Howard said, "Yeah, they know that Donald Trump is guilty. They know that Donald Trump has done all these bad things. It's not up for debate what this guy has done." Now, there are a group of people that are so fed up with the system that they're willing to stick it to the people, stick it to the man. And they think sticking it to the man is Donald Trump, because Donald Trump gives the belief that he's unhinged. Donald Trump gives the belief that he is just going to tear up the system, etc., etc., etc. And those middle class folks and working class folks, they want the system torn up because they thought they believe they've been given a bad break. But sometimes as you're frustrated, you make bad decisions. Donald Trump is not in there for any of neither MAGA or non-MAGA. Donald Trump doesn't really give a damn. And he tells you, and the funny thing about it, he doesn't hide it. He goes and talks to his rich people and tells them, hey, even recently, when I get in there, your tax is going to be cut, man. It's going to be okay with you. I'm going to take care of you. And then you have to ask the question, right? If he's taking care of these folks by cutting their taxes, and most of you working class people, MAGA inclusive, are having financial problems, economic problems, where is that tax cut coming from? Are they going to print money so that we can give these guys a tax cut, not raise your taxes and not cut your services? I don't think so. I don't think so. And wait a minute. It's not that I don't think so. I know it's not the case, because if you listen to if you watch 2025, what is it called? That document 2025. If you read it, you see exactly what they want to do, what they want to cut. And guess what? Project 2025 is what I'm talking about. Guess what? When they cut these programs, they're not cutting it for Democrats. They're not cutting it for progressives. They're cutting it for all of us. When I say programs, I'm not talking, welfare, food stamps. I'm talking about roads. I'm talking about airline access to the skies. I'm talking about everything that we all collectively pay for in order to give to a few. Because, it starts this way. You see the wealthy all living in gated communities. You see they have helicopters to get them to their gated communities. You see they have islands off of the United States and islands off of these other places where they can go ahead and live in peace, as we live within the chaos that they leave behind. I know it's not all that evident quite often, right? It's not evident quite often what's happening. But if you think any of these rich guys are out for you, if any of these guys are out for you, then you're dreaming. So then the only thing that should concern us all are policies, right? What policies you effectively see get executed, right? And then you compare what the policies that will get executed look like. And, you can go ahead and look at Biden as a neoliberal, which I do. But if it's a neoliberal influenced by progressives who got elected by the majority, I'll take it. I'll take it. Because the kind of things that we got were things that actually help people, right? Student loan forgiveness passed by Biden, which was only 33%, as Paul Fleming talked about yesterday in our chat. Biden's policy for student loans was only 33% of the loans were forgiven. That was too much for the GOP. So they cut it. The Supreme Court sacked it. And then what happened thereafter? Oh, well, Biden found ways within the law to piecemeal it. And now, thus far, he has been able to forgive, or we the people, the US government has been able to forgive about 10% of the student loans on the ones that have been hurting people the most. So we have a government that assisted. For the longest time, we had as well support for families to get their kids into daycare so that they can work. We're talking about having a shortage of workers. So, a lot of the reasons we have shortage of workers is that people need support. Families need support. The GOP purport itself to be the party of the family, the party of life. That's what they say. But when it's time to hold to account a party that supports life, a party that supports work, a party that says help yourself, lift yourself by the bootstrap, the policies that support those ideas, example, let's make daycare affordable. So we had subsidies for families at a certain level who went ahead and got support for putting their kids in. That expires. Why did that expire? It's because all Republicans voted against it, and Cinema and Manchin didn't support it. And you know what? Those two Democrats and all Republicans' excuse was, if we do that, these people are going to stay home on their couches and not work. They're going to stay home and not do anything. They're going to gamble it away. I mean, the disdain that the GOP and a group of neoliberals have for the American people is astounding. It's as if these guys live in some tower where they don't meet people. Because I tell you what I see. As I drive around Houston, there was a time that I used to go into the studio early in the mornings, right? And you had to go past all these different bus stops, and I would go through different neighborhoods. And in the poorest neighborhoods, you see people right there at the bus station. The freeways are clogged with people trying to get to work. America is not a lazy society, but what the propaganda is and what they're good at doing with propaganda is trying to convince Americans that are going to work every day. They look for two guys or a few people that are surfing when they should be working, or they look at two people that are just hanging out on the corner, and they make that representative of that is how those people live. And then you get mad whenever you hear people need welfare. But most of the people on welfare, most of the people that need extra support are the working poor. If you go into the parts of our country that the Republican Party has denied, I'm talking about some of where they have some major support. You hear me talk about Appalachia a lot. And the reason why I talk about Appalachia a lot is this reason. I understand the stereotype that many would make about our black and brown brothers and sisters that live in the inner cities, and they make it seem as if that is a condition that's put upon them not by society but by they themselves. Then, but you know, to have a real discussion as far as the causal, what causes poverty, what causes crime, you have to show that it is systemic, that it affects us all, right? But note that when you watch the news in the afternoons, you don't show the degeneracy that's comparable to, let's say, the worst part of our inner cities with the worst parts of these and the entire Appalachian Trail. You don't show that 50% of the people in the Appalachian areas are on what? Food stamps and government assistance. Nobody hears that. And what it does then, it confuses a lot of our white brothers and sisters in these areas like Houston and Dallas and LA and all these things to think that somehow the problem isn't systemic, it is just those people. That is why informing is so important. I asked all of you a few weeks ago to watch a YouTube video about a guy who just went ahead. He's a freelance guy, like what I do as well, going around the country and doing certain things. And he went into several towns in Appalachia, and he drove up the mountains and met people. And every single person he met was on some sort of assistance. And they explained how the fentanyl and all of that, what it did to that area, etc. Why? I mean, he went through the entire thing, right? And the one thing that you notice from the discussion there, and by the way, it was interesting because what I found is that all the people there shared the same story, whether they were black, white, or whatever in this Appalachian region, right? And these are people that have camaraderie, get along, all that good stuff. But if you take a look at the news, whether it be 60 Minutes, 60 Minutes did a thing on Appalachia 1 or 2 times that I've seen, but America doesn't know its own history of poverty and the downtrodden, the folks that are left behind, and why they're left behind, and who gets exposed as being left behind, and who is on, and I don't like to use the term on the dole, but who are the people that are having to really get assistance. And it's not mostly the folks in the inner city. It is the folks in the rural areas. It is the folks in Appalachia. And let's go a little deeper and a little further. And all these people are continuing to vote for people that want to cut the policies that give them rural hospitals. And by the way, folks, those of you that are listening to me that are on the right, or those of my brothers and sisters that are MAGA listening to me right now, everything that I'm saying right now, please don't take at face value. Look it up. Because it's not hard to find if you're really looking for, if you really go out and search for it. You see, the powers that be think we are all stupid. You have to realize that, first of all. The people that are in charge, they think you're stupid. You're not going to read. They've got you working so hard. First, they say you don't work, but you're working so hard. You don't have a chance to do a lot of research on your own. So a politics done right will say, you know, what we'll do is we will kind of help move the information, the reality, the truth along. Why? Because, you know, you listen to mainstream media today. I'm listening to to Morning Joe here, and all I hear, you turn all the stations, you're hearing the same thing on all of the stations. And yeah, we regurgitate it as well, but we add a lot of context to why a lot of this stuff is happening, right? You hear a lot, you hear a lot of this stuff, but you just hear the sanitize what's going on. We hear the sanitize Israel-Gaza issue. Well, we hear the sanitize poverty issue, the sanitize economic issue, right? Oh, people are not doing well, and we wonder why the polls are where the polls are. And look, we have to really start voting our interest, but it's not as simple as voting your interest, because many times people don't understand who's against their interest, who's fighting against their interest. And all I'm asking people to do is not listen to just one voice, but actually let's do our research. And those of you that don't have time, find a source of information you can trust, so that you can say, well, today I'm not going to, and I am trying to earn your trust actually by telling you, go double check the things that I speak about on this program. And when you develop that level of trust, you don't have to do that much hard work anymore, because I'll be there continuing to do it, right? But build trust in a source that you know it's not misleading you. The reason we continue in the state that we are in right now is because we're all so ill-informed, misinformed, and disinformed. And each of those means something different. Ill-informed, misinformed, and disinformed. And the worst of them all is disinformation. Okay. Anyway, done with my rant for the morning. So before I start saying, give me a call, I want you to listen to when we talk about when we talk about this election is about democracy. It is important for you to not just throw your hands up in the air and say, I don't know what you're talking about. Because when you lose democracy, it's hard to come back. I'm going to give a corollary to what Brother Howard had to say. You know, Howard was giving his rant about the Supreme Court. And, you know, they know that, you know, that Donald Trump shouldn't have total immunity. And here's the thing, right? I am not sure, and I don't get these guys thinking. I am starting to think these guys are feeling threatened by a true multicultural society that's equitable. And the reason I say that is it is almost they're fighting for something that doesn't or has never existed. This was an easy case. An easy case. The founders, first of all, never put immunity in the Constitution, the right wing of the Supreme Court has always called themselves literalists. They always said that they govern by the letter of the Constitution, the letter of the law, except, and that's the reason they claim they overturned Roe versus Wade, because the Constitution didn't say a woman has the right to her own body. And because it didn't say that, they figured that using privacy to protect a woman and give her the ability to control whether she wants to have an abortion or not. By the way, that's a clause that they use, the privacy clause, right? So they think it's not there, so we can't implement it as law. Well, Broward thinks differently. He believes that the Supreme Court must change with the times, but that's not how they believe. They call themselves, they don't call themselves literalists. There's a word that they use meaning literalist, okay? But somehow now that Trump wants total immunity, they're actually taking it seriously. Okay, now, but they're holding back right now. And why are they holding back? Here's the kicker. Imagine if the Supreme Court today gave Donald Trump total immunity. All right, a lot of the cases that's against Donald Trump would have to fall off, right? Because he has immunity. But guess who else gets immunity? Brother Biden. And Biden could then say, I am going to stay in office because I have total immunity and you can't touch me. So I am not sure that they won't give the guy total immunity, even though they kind of speak against it, but they want to make sure the right people are in power at the time that they give total immunity. Because if they give total immunity now, Biden has it, and Biden can decide to stay in power if he so desires. The reality of the things that are occurring, folks, is astounding. Anyway, so I talked about wanting democracy and the Republican Party being an anti-democratic party has converted itself completely into an anti-democratic republic. I want you to listen to this, and then we will take it on the other side. You know, many of us have been talking about the election of 2024 being existential for democracy. And many people just think we are just once again hyperventilating about what the intent of the Republican Party is. And before I get into my narrative, I want you to listen to this piece that a snippet from a piece that Rachel Maddow did, because it illustrates perfectly that we are not hyperventilating when we say that the Republican Party is an anti-democratic party. In other words, they do not believe in majority rule. They do not believe in one person, one vote, and they actually specify that. Check this out, then we'll take it on the other side.
The assembled delegates decided that they would craft their party platform for this year after dealing with the gubernatorial nomination. They decided they would add something new to their platform. They decided that as the Washington State Republican Party, they would this year take a stand against democracy. And I do not mean this as a metaphor. I am not performing political analysis. I am literally describing what they literally did.
We do not want to be a democracy. Originally, congressmen were elected by a direct democracy. Senators were elected by their state legislatures, and presidents are elected by the Electoral College. We are devolving into a democracy because now congressmen and senators are elected by the same pool, a direct democracy. And with the national popular vote coming, we're going to be electing our president by a direct democracy too. Bad idea.
Bad idea. We are devolving into a democracy. We do not want to be a democracy. Okay. As Danny Westneat at the Seattle Times reported, delegates of the Washington State Republican Convention then stood up one by one to argue that the U.S. should repeal the 17th Amendment, which allows us to vote for our United States senators. After that resolution passed, they went Bigger, they voted to put this language into their platform. Quote, we encourage Republicans to substitute the words republic and republicanism, where previously they have used the word democracy. Every time the word democracy is used favorably, it serves to promote the principles of the Democratic Party, the principles of which we ardently oppose. Quote, we oppose legislation which makes our nation more democratic in nature. We oppose legislation which makes our nation more democratic in nature. So say Washington state Republicans, officially in writing in their party platform.
Now, here's what's important. First of all, let me remind you, for some time I said that this election should be a landslide election for Democrats and progressives because Republicans are laying the pathway. They are laying the path for people who believe in democracy, which most Americans do, that they will vote. If they vote accordingly, there is no way from the county board straight up to the state house, straight up to the Congress, Senate, and presidency, the Republican Party winning votes would be over if it is made clear what they represent, which is our duty or the duty of Democrats and progressives to do. So when you hear these guys wanting to repeal the 17th Amendment, they don't want a direct vote. And now they're talking about the popular vote for presidency based on the popular compact. Let's be clear here, folks. It is true that, and I wrote about this several times, that the Republican Party understands that they will never be a majority party based on the policies that they support. And instead of modifying their policies to create a big tent, they do what's necessary to win with a minority. A few months ago or a few years ago, I wrote the article about how the Republican Party was intent on using the Supreme Court to overrule anything done by the legislature and the executive. The Supreme Court would be the backstop. So they've stuffed the Supreme Court with crazies, not just conservatives, but with a few crazies. They stuffed the Supreme Court. Now they're talking about wanting to repeal the 17th Amendment that goes ahead and elected directly the senators into the Congress. You know, they act as if somehow they're being maligned. The people that really have something to complain about are states like New York and California. Huge populations, 2 senators. The Dakotas, tiny populations, 2 senators. But then again, they don't believe in democracy. If you doubt for 1 minute that democracy is on the line, just listen to what they say. Don't listen to what we say. Listen to what they're saying. We present it to the audience, folks, and it's all over. Get ready for a big win. But to get a big win, we must inform everybody as far as what's really happening in America with the Republican Party.
We spend a lot of time.
Absolutely so, folks. The big win, however, requires an educated population. All right, it seems like our phones are back up and working. So let's go ahead and start with Harry. Come on in, Harry.
Good morning, Roberto. You guys, once again, are very good at what you do, you, Howard, and Jack. And before I comment on what you guys talked about this morning, I have to correct something because I called the business line yesterday. I thought about it because when you talked about the property taxes on Steve's show, and then you talked about the public land and how the taxpayer should get some of that, the taxpayers should tax the oil companies so that can go back into the economy and work for the taxpayer. I had mentioned when voting in more progressives, and I had forgotten that Greg Abbott is in his second term because I remember saying vote out Greg Abbott. Well, we can't vote. You can't, since he's not going to be able to run again, you don't want to vote more people in like Greg Abbott. And I was also talking with my brother about this, Ted Cruz, remember the Texas freeze? And, Ted Cruz just went off to Cancun while ERCOT had its problems. Some people got frozen in that. The pipes broke, and you can't vote people like that in. You got to vote more progressive-minded people that think like you, Howard, and Jack in, so Texas can be a better place, and you don't have crooks like Ken Paxton.
Harry,
Now,
I want to interrupt you. Harry, I need to interrupt you for a second because we need to make sure
ahead.
Americans have the right information. There's no term limits for governors in Texas. Okay, you can run as long as you want to run.
Oh, okay. I thought he couldn't run again. I thought so. Oh,
No.
so he can keep running. Okay. Well, well, thanks for enlightening me on that, Ebert. I thought. Well, then I was correct then.
Yes,
when
you
I
were.
said you've got to vote Greg Abbott out. So those things you talked about with the property taxes, that people have problems with the property taxes going through the roof because Abbott won't do anything in that area, and then the same with the like you were saying with the oil and how people have power and oil companies should be taxed. So that tax money can be put back into the economy and work for the people. You're absolutely right about that.
All right.
Yeah, I was going to say, Howard is right about the Supreme Court. That's how you heard me talking about Ketanji Brown Jackson. Those men on the Supreme Court want, and you mentioned it earlier, Roberto, those men want Donald Trump back in there so he can do his crooked, as Ketanji Brown Jackson put it, turn the Oval Office into a crime wave.
Harry, I agree with you, brother, but the lines are filling up now. I appreciate your voice as usual. Got to go, brother. Let me throw it to Howard for a second, and then Donald. Come on in, Howard.
Oh, I was just going to tell you the phone lines are back.
Oh, okay. Thank you, my brother. All right, let's go to Donald. Come on in, Donald.
Good morning, Alberto. How are you guys doing?
Well, you notice you got your kudos today because we actually mentioned that thing that you brought to our attention, which is the great dictator, sir.
I know. I gave you the song. I gave you the video. Now you just have to get me with Billy Strings on the right and a slide dobro on the left. And I'm going to teach you something. I'm telling you, it works. But anyway, say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I saw that. I know the Pledge of Allegiance, but I'm not going to. I am not going to say it on. Yes, of course I know it.
I know you're not. That's the whole point. When California, East Coast tells the West Coast what Texas is going to do, then we have a problem. We have the right to succeed, and any other state does. Because it is not a democracy. It is a republic. You can move to a state, and you can vote in that state, and you can control that state. But you cannot control the United States of America. The founding fathers built a system that works. And if you disrupt it or if you change it, you will see the fall of the Roman Empire recreated over again.
Donald, I'm not sure I understand what you're saying, right? And let me tell you why. Yes, there is federalism in this country, right? Where you have state rights and federal rights, but also within the Constitution is that federal rights supersede state rights. And there's a reason that was built, and that was for some sort of uniformity. Also, we have to, in my very humble opinion, remember that the founding fathers were not Jesus Christ incarnate or Allah incarnate or anything like that. They were just men like you and me. And they suffered from the same problems that you and me have, which is prejudices and all these other things that come involved. And within that constitution, they made a hell of a lot of mistakes. After all, I was 3/5 of a man. So look, let's stop deifying the Constitution. Let's stop deifying the founding fathers, and let's start looking at all of our Americans as people who love, people who want a country that works for them. We don't even need to create that separation that you just did, my brother. East Coast, West Coast, Texas. That is the magic of what the plutocracy has done to us. I speak to Texans, I speak to Californians, I speak to Floridians, I speak to New Yorkers, and guess what I find? There's a hell of a lot more in common than you may think. Now, what the plutocracy will do is give you the impression that somehow we want things very differently, that different. That is not the truth. So while federalism exists and state rights exist, I think it's a lot less of an issue in a connected society than one would believe. And that's my rant directed directly at Brother Donald and everybody that thinks like my brother Donald.
Okay, exactly. So I can't go to New York here in the next couple of months or years or so and get a brick-fired pizza because
Yes, you can.
they're going
Yes,
to
you can.
regulate it in such a way that they're not going to be able to use it. I just watched something on
And
the news.
and I want to stop you right there.
Well,
Like I
okay.
tell my brother Donald, I love you, but let me tell you this, okay? Stop listening to the way the news sensationalizes issues. If you are in a brick city like New York City proper, you can forget about just putting a brick stove any and everywhere. You're in a different environment. If you're in Texas where you have an inordinate amount of land, of course it makes sense that you have different sorts of regulations. And guess what? New Yorkers have the ability, if they so desire, to change the regulations for their states that don't supersede any kind of regulations that is deemed a national regulation. And a national regulation can be changed if most of Americans believe that regulation makes no sense. Obama started a process in trying to get rid of what you would agree with, Brother Donald, are silly regulations that no longer are necessary based on today's reality. Continue, my brother, and then I got to go to John.
Here is the problem. They write the laws before they think about the outcome.
And
There's
guess
your
what?
show you your
Here is the
vacuum
deal.
on
And we
both
got
sides.
and we have Donald out there that will be able to tell folks that I come on a radio show and say, "Hey, guys, this particular regulation doesn't make any sense. Let's fight against it and get it changed." Donald, I love you, man. You keep listening. You keep
Awesome.
calling, but I
Yes,
got to go
sir.
to John.
Take it easy. All righty.
All right,
Bye-bye.
brother. Peace. Let's go to John. Come on in, John. John, you're on. You may be on mute, John. Okay, John, line 3. Come on, John. We want to hear from you, John. All right, let's put John back on hold and go to John. Oops, we lost you. Hey, John, call us back, and we'll definitely get you on. Call us back, John. Let's go to Johnny. Brother Johnny,
Okay.
Mayor of Politics Done Right. How you doing?
All right. So with both Rachel Maddow and Ronald McDonald, who you spoke, are both missing the forest from the trees. It's all well and good for Rachel to point out what she did about that legislator in Washington, and that's a serious threat to this country. But what she's missing, maybe on purpose, is the fact that the true enemy is lying underneath, the corporate industrial oligarchs like the Koch brother or brothers. I think there's 2 survivors left. People like that have to be given the full light of day by people like Rachel. She's got the resource to do it, but she works for MSNBC, and they are compromised by the corporate money that they take. So how do we get around this? How do we get around this? That's the real problem here.
Can I give you an answer?
Yes, please.
All right, here's the first thing, Johnny. Let me tell you why I like Rachel and why I like Joyanne Reed and why I like Ali Velshi and why I like Chris Hayes. They push the limits as far as they can on a corporate-driven station. Okay, every now and then you can see exactly when they're neutered, but they kind of push the limits, and they give the independents like myself material that we can take further. Because look at what you just did. Look at what you just did. You just said Rachel Maddow got it right, but she didn't take it the other level. She couldn't, right? But we can. And that's what you did. So what I'm saying is, for those of us that are listening to us right now, that's the reason there is a Politics Done Right. That's the reason there's a U Talk. That's the reason there is a TYT. That's the reason there's a Daily Coast. That's the reason why there are all these independents that are not their wings are not clipped by the big boys. The thing about what the big boys have is they have the money and the efforts to go into Gaza. So when they give us a report from Gaza where somebody had to spend some money to go over there, we can then take and expand on that report based on what they say, based on the context that we have over there. 2 days ago, I brought you some stuff from Pink Code Pink, who was sitting in a hotel in Turkey on their way to Gaza. These are the kinds of ways that we make the changes and the way that we get it done. So as opposed to saying Rachel got it wrong, brother Johnny, I'm saying Rachel kind of put put the seed out there that we need to take and run with. Go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you. I can't disagree with what you said with regards to the talking heads on MSNBC. They do many times push the limit, but they recognize those limits, and that's where then it's up to you to take up the slack. And I just don't know if you, along with TYT and all the left-leaning progressives that I support, is enough to reach enough people in real time, and I'm concerned about that. So I would hope people like I would hope that people like Donald and Brian, that they would feel the same visceral hatred and disgust with people like that legislator in Washington as I do.
The thing about it is we have to, Johnny, and we have to make our case. And to make our case, we have to communicate. And believe it or not, even though we have, some of our brothers and sisters calling in here and giving us a hard time every so often, hey, we are planting seeds. They're planting seed. I call it the seeds of cooperation, etc. I still, my stuff isn't naive hope or anything like that. My thing is, eventually people, you see, let me tell you something, Johnny, and I gotta then move on to Augie. But I want to tell you something. There's institutions that are there to make us hate each other because that's the only way this plutocracy survives. And if I reciprocate that hate, let me give an example. If I get a caller that calls in here, hates my guts because I'm a pinko liberal, progressive, left wing, socialist, or whatever they want to call me, okay? And if I go ahead and reciprocate that hate, right, that is exactly where the plutocracy wants me. But when that person calls in and I listen to that person and I let them bang as much as they want, and I correct the record, but I'm not going to show any animosity to them. Eventually, they're going to say, "Oh my God, this guy is actually listening to me," and I'm not asking if that works. I'm telling you that works. I see it work all the time. I mean, it takes patience, but hell, that's all we got, So my thing again is, all of us can't do that. All of us can't have the patience to not just go bat, crazy. But you know what? Some of us can, and those of us who can should. And that's all I'm saying. But let me tell you, I disagree with nothing that you've just said. We just have to keep moving forward. And now you made another important point. You made another important point, Johnny, and I want to make this clear. Johnny just said something very important. He said, I don't know if you independents are enough to get it done. And let me tell you why it gives us a problem. Next week, we're going to be in Fund Drive. All right. And the Koch brothers have no problem sending a hell of a lot of money to all the folks that are there misinforming people. I've been offered that as well, to misinform. But we only have folks like you to support what we are doing, to really make good, to get out the information. And I'm going to be honest with you. We have a damn hard time asking our progressive brothers and sisters, our moderate brothers and sisters, to support us in a sustaining level when they don't have a problem going and get a Starbucks coffee that's supporting a plutocracy that is also trying to keep folks in their place, or they go to a big restaurant and they spend $100, $500, and we say, hey, can you give us a couple of coffees a month? That is where we have to change our mindset to say, yes, we want to do the things that give us pleasure, but we also have to do the things that are going to uplift not only ourselves, but uplift our values and what makes a democracy work. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to say that, Johnny. Go ahead.
Real quickly, may I say something in response to what you just said a moment ago?
Yes, sir.
So I don't disagree with everything you just said, especially when it comes to fundraising and getting people to reprioritize their spending habits. I wish they had the same mindset as I do, because if I had enough, I would endow the radio station so there'd be no problems. But we live in the real world, and all I'm asking is for people like Ronald McDonald and Brian to be as outraged with me as they are, as I know they already are, about corporate rule, and to be as outraged and have visceral hatred for that legislator in Washington State. We don't share that against that person, and they were not able to bark up the correct tree, that is, up against the Contra brothers. That's what we need to focus our negative energies on. Together.
You're right, Johnny, and I gotta go to Augie and Brian, and I want to just tell you that Brian, Donald, and these others are supporters of Politics Done Right as well. So you know that, we are making some camaraderie here. So I love all folks that are well, I love everybody, but so I'm saying these guys are putting their voice where it is. So let's go to Augie real quick and then Brian. Come on in, Augie.
Hey, good morning. Now about Charlie Chaplin dictator. I've seen it quite a few times on Facebook, so I think you can put it out there if you want to. And,
go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, and about Donald, and he was talking about the dictatorship. Well, he's talking about the country, Italy, Rome, how they went down. That's because they had dictators. And he talks about going to New York, and he doesn't want to be ruled by, rules. Well, if he doesn't want to do that, he can go, instead of going to New York, he should try going to Russia, China, or North Korea. See what it's like over there. And he was talking about secession, and just like Perry did, and the Republicans are talking about it. They don't know the history either, because the Civil War happened, and secession is not really an option. But they seem to forget all about their history and the things in the past.
But can I interrupt you, Augie, to say one other thing? Let me tell you a reality that few people realize, right? While it turns out that many of the people in the red states love to talk about secession and low taxes and all of that, the part that they leave out, which I've written extensively about at my blog site as well, is that most red states are takers. In other words, to survive, for their populations to do well, blue states are supporting them because they take more out of the federal government than they put in. So if they secede, their governments wouldn't last that long because they will crater out of poverty. The reality is we support the blue states support most red states. That's not up for debate. That's a statement of fact. And that just points to the fact that the conservative ideology from a fiscal standpoint, as we've always known, is not sustainable. And it's proven because they are taker states. They are bigger states. They all take more than they give. Continue, Augie, and I got to get to Brian in about 30 seconds.
Yeah. And, and also those red states, like Biden's helping them out with the infrastructure bill that he went out. They get more money, but their politicians up in Congress voted against his plan. But when it's working in the red states, they're bragging, look about all this money we got in it. No, they voted against that money that was coming into their state.
Exactly. Okay, got to go to Brian, my brother. I got to go to Brian. But thank you very much for calling in, and thank you for being one of our great supporters, Augie.
Today's the last day to vote early for appraisal district and for Whitmire's seat. And the way it's fixed, you got to go to different places. You got to go to particular places to vote early. So you have to be aware of when you can go vote. So if you want to go vote for the appraisal district, be aware where you got to go vote, and also for Whitmire's seat. Today's the last day for early voting.
Senate District 15. Thank you, Augie. Thank you, Augie. Let's go to Brian. Come on in, Brian. Sorry, I only got about a minute for you, brother.
Okay. Yeah, I want to talk about the opposition that Israel is facing, and the United States, with a bunch of college kids that wants to break the law and camp out and protest. It's not their right to protest on private property. Also, there are 5 U.S. American citizens that are held hostage by Hamas, not prisoners like Gaynor was, and Biden traded her off to a known felon. He did that because she was a black lesbian trying to gain votes. That's all there is. Why don't we hear things about the 5 Americans that are held hostage? Not prisoners, hostage. There's a difference between breaking the law, bringing drugs to a country, and being kidnapped and held hostage for a political statement. Anything?
All right. Yeah. The only thing I can say is that the tone of your voice when you said that black lesbian, it just concerns me a bit. But that said, I think we all know about the 5 hostages, and one of the things in negotiations is that you don't highlight the hostages often. And the reason why, in fact, we try to downplay, I don't remember her name, who came home as well, because it gives leverage to the person holding the hostages. But that said, look, this requires a longer discussion that you should call in earlier for, and let's talk about this tomorrow, because I'd like to address it in a more sensible manner. So let's talk tomorrow on that. All right, Brian?
Okay, and Rachel Maddow thought that taking the COVID shot cured everything, and she was
All
wrong
right.
about that.
Okay, we'll
She needs
talk
to do
about
some
that.
more math.
We'll talk about that also later. We'll talk about that later. But anyway, folks, I got to get out of here. Before I get out, of course, thank you, Brian. We'll talk later. Let's go to the studio.
Oh, nothing for me, but Jack has something.
Yeah, the proper term for bat crazy is bat guano crazy.
Yeah, that would work.
Actually, you're right, because the excrement from bat, I think bats are called guano. It's that fertilizer or that great thing that they use and try to ship all over the world. You're so right about. You see, we got geniuses in the studio, folks. I told you so.
Oh, Lord.
I told you
Oh,
there were
Lord.
geniuses in the studios. Okay?
We haven't
Anyway,
found them yet.
we got to get out of here. Anyway, folks, thank you so kindly for your ears. Thank you for listening. Love you all, whatever side you're on. My name is Egberto Willis. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out.
It's time.